Somewhere in a boardroom in London, a group of executives who run one of Britain's largest brewing companies are looking at a sales report they did not expect to see. A brand that did not exist 5 years ago is now sitting in more than 4,000 pubs across the country. It is not owned by a corporation. It is not backed by a marketing agency. It is owned, in part, by a farmer who spends most of his time arguing with his local council about a car park. That farmer is Jeremy Clarkson, and the beer is quietly becoming one of the biggest threats the British brewing industry has faced in decades. This is not an exaggeration to get you to click. This is happening right now, in real numbers, in real pubs, while the biggest names in beer try to work out how it happened. Let's go back to the beginning, because the beginning is where this story actually gets interesting. There was a small brewery called Cotswold Brew Company. 2 people ran it, Rick and Emma. They were doing exactly what thousands of small breweries across Britain do every single year: making good beer, selling it locally, fighting to survive against companies with 100 times their budget and none of their care. Then Jeremy Clarkson walked in. He needed a beer for his farm shop because his farm shop was already packed with customers, and he wanted something local, something honest, something that actually matched what Diddley Squat stood for. Rick and Emma made him a lager. Nothing complicated. Just water, malted barley, hops, and yeast. 4 ingredients. No shortcuts, no chemical additives, no corner cutting. When that beer landed on the shelf in the farm shop, something happened that nobody expected. It sold out. Then it sold out again. Then people who had never even visited the farm started asking where they could buy it themselves. Jeremy saw what was happening and made the one decision that changed everything. He didn't just want to stock the beer. He wanted to invest in it. Now here is where most celebrity investments quietly fail. A famous face slaps their name on a product, takes a cut, does one photo shoot, and walks away while somebody else does all the real work. That is not what happened here. Clarkson put real money in, and Rick and Emma used that money to do the one thing a small brewery almost never gets the chance to do: expand properly, on their own terms. The land they brew on now was not even theirs a few years ago. They bought it. They are laying new floors, bringing in new fermentation tanks, building out production simply because demand refuses to slow down, no matter how fast they scale up to meet it. This is a business that grew from 50 pubs to more than 4,000.
50 to 4,000?
Yeah,
that's phenomenal.
Read that number again. 50 to 4,000. In an industry where most independent breweries are fighting just to keep their doors open for another year, Hawkstone is expanding so fast that construction crews can barely keep up with demand. And here is the number that should genuinely worry the big brewers. Hop usage tied to this one brewery alone has pushed British hop farming up by 15% in a single year. One farmer, one beer brand, an entire agricultural supply chain moved because of it. That is not clever marketing. That is real, measurable economic weight, and it is only going in one direction. So why is this actually a threat to the giants and not just a nice underdog story? Because of the one thing those giants have always relied on to stay untouchable. Big breweries do not win because their beer tastes better. Most people, if you're honest with yourself, could not tell you the difference in a blind tap test. They win because they own the pubs, they own the distribution contracts, they control which taps go where, and they have controlled it for decades. A small brewery could make the finest lager in the country and still never get anywhere near a bar in central London, because the supply chain was locked up long before that brewer was even born. That has always been the wall independent brewers could not climb. Hawkstone climbed it. Not through clever business tactics, through something the big brands have completely lost: trust. Millions of people already watched Jeremy Clarkson lose money on turnips, fight the council over a car park for 2 years, and nearly go bankrupt trying to run an honest farm shop the right way. When that same man says a beer is worth trying, people believe him in a way they would never believe a billboard on the motorway. That kind of trust cannot be bought with an advertising budget. It has to be earned, slowly, in public, with real failures along the way. And that is exactly what the major brewers do not have anymore. Then there is the way this beer is actually made, and it matters more than most viewers would assume. 90% of any lager is simply water. The other 10% is where the real story sits. Malted barley gives it color. Roast that barley longer and you get a darker beer, richer, almost like coffee. Hops go in for around an hour to build the flavor. Then comes the part almost nobody outside a brewery ever sees: yeast. A living organism that eats the natural sugars pulled from the barley and converts them into alcohol and carbon dioxide. That is where the bubbles actually come from. Not injected like a fizzy drink off a factory line. Grown naturally, slower, smaller, and far more genuine than anything a mass producer pushes out in bulk to hit a quarterly target. And that slowness is completely deliberate. While the big commercial brewers rush their beer through the system to protect their profit margins, Hawkstone lets theirs mature for longer. Longer maturation means better flavor. It costs them time. It costs them money. But it is exactly why customers keep coming back for more, pub after pub, week after week. Even the packaging tells the same story if you look closely enough. Dark glass bottles, the same style used by champagne houses for over a century, protect the beer from light and heat without needing the chemical stabilizers some of the biggest names in the industry quietly rely on to keep their product shelf stable. It is a small detail most people would never notice, but it is a massive statement about what kind of company this actually is. Nothing here goes to waste either. After the barley has done its job, it does not end up in a bin. It goes straight to local farmers as feed for their cattle. Those same farmers then supply milk and cheese back to the brewery's own taproom. A closed loop, built almost by accident, because two small brewers and one very stubborn farmer decided doing things properly mattered more than doing them cheaply. Now picture the room inside one of Britain's largest brewing corporations right now. A boardroom full of executives who spent decades carefully building distribution empires, watching quarterly reports where a farmer they probably laughed off a few years ago is eating into their market share, pub by pub, region by region. That is not a comfortable meeting to sit through, and it is happening more often than they would ever admit publicly. Here is the part that should worry them even more. This still is not Hawkstone's biggest audience. The company has been almost entirely focused on kegs, supplying pubs and restaurants directly, because that is where genuine loyalty gets built. Someone tries the beer at their local pub, enjoys it, and then goes looking for it in the shop afterwards. Bottles and cans have mostly stayed a secondary focus so far, which means the version of Hawkstone most people have already experienced is not even close to the full version of what this brand is capable of. There is still enormous room left to grow. And growth like this is exactly what worries an industry built entirely on protecting its existing market share. So what happens next? Historically, there is only one playbook when an independent brand starts eating into a major brewer's territory. The giants do not fight it forever. Eventually, they try to buy it. And the longer Hawkstone keeps growing at this pace, the higher that purchase price is going to climb. Every month, Clarkson and his small team of brewers keep expanding. Every new pub they get a tap into, every new bottle that lands on a shelf, the number a major brewer would need to write on a check just to make this competition disappear, gets bigger. Which raises the real question everyone in this industry is quietly asking. Would Clarkson even sell? This is a man who has spent years proving, on camera, in front of millions of viewers, that he is far more interested in doing things properly than doing things profitably. He has lost money on purpose just to prove a point about British farming. He fought his own local council for years rather than quietly giving up. Would he really hand over a brand built on trust and independence to the exact same corporate machine he has spent his entire farming journey pushing back against? Maybe, maybe not. But one thing is certain. What started as a single beer for a struggling farm shop has turned into one of the fastest-growing breweries in the entire country. And it has done it by breaking almost every rule the big players rely on to survive. No shortcuts in the recipe, no rushing the process, no chemical crutches hiding in the bottle, just patience, trust, and a farmer with a camera crew who accidentally became one of the biggest threats the British beer industry has seen in years. The major brewers built their empires on control. Hawkstone is quietly proving that control is not what people actually want anymore. They want honesty. They want to know where their pint actually came from, who made it, and why it tastes the way it does. And right now, more people trust a stubborn farmer from Oxfordshire than they trust the companies that have run this industry for the last 100 years. That is not a threat that goes away quietly. And if history has taught the big brewers anything, ignoring it never works out well for them. Think about how many industries have already learned this lesson the hard way. A small, honest operator starts out looking almost too small to matter, right up until the moment the numbers say otherwise. By then, it is too late to simply outspend them, because the thing driving the growth was never a marketing budget in the first place. If you want to see exactly how far this rivalry goes, and what happens the moment the major brewers finally make their move, make sure you are subscribed and turn on notifications, because this story is only just getting started, and the next chapter might be the one that changes everything.